What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear podcast. And today we want to talk about one of the most exciting young players on the Chicago Bears roster. Let's talk about wide receiver Rome Odunze. This is the slow time of the NFL offseason, and I decided to go back into the film room mode and get a lot of film analysis videos out for you guys. So I've already done a couple on the free agent and trade acquisitions of the Chicago Bears offseason in 2025. And today, we want to take a look back at 2024 rookie for the Chicago Bears, Rome Odunze, wide receiver 3 on the depth chart last year. One of the most interesting, intriguing, and talented wide receivers in the league, in my opinion. And today we'll look at his 2024 tape and talk about what he's going to bring to the Chicago Bears in 2025, what to expect, and how he did do in his rookie year in 2024. Now, this is obviously going to be interesting because Rome Odunze is expected to have a big-time year. So let's get right into it and look at the stats. Now, for the stats in 2024, it is pretty eye-popping if you consider that he was a wide receiver 3 for the Chicago Bears. He played in 17 games, started 12 of those, had 101 targets, only 54 receptions, so a catch percentage of 53.5%, and then had 734 yards and 3 touchdowns in his rookie campaign. Now, where it gets interesting is his advanced stats. 30% of his targets, we're talking about a stat line until week 11 at that point, 30% of his targets were deep targets, which means 20 plus air yards overall, and he was the 5th in the NFL among wide receivers with at least 30 targets in that category, getting that many targets down the field. And the issue was in 2024, Caleb and him only connected on 3 of 15 tries at that point of the season, so not connecting a lot at all on those deep tries. And if you look at the overall season stats for him, he had a 15.4% catch rate on 26 deep targets overall. So that was obviously something that's very interesting. And with that being said, for the stats, very solid, but as always, we want to look at the tape and see what he did there. So let's see how he actually did in 2024 and in which areas of his game he really was good at and where he needs improvement. And even though the Chicago Bears did not use him well a lot of times, especially under Shane Waldron, I think they misused him very much often, he was still able to show some really good routes. So let's talk about the route running first of all, in both the slot and out wide, because that was one cool aspect of watching tape, because I know Ben Johnson's going to utilize him in multiple spots on the field. So that was a positive surprise rewatching the tape in 2024. Now, what can I say about Rome Odunze as a route runner? I think he is a very sudden route runner with a great hip drop at the top of the route and change of speed with little to no indicators in the route, striding and selling the route always vertically. And I have to say, guys, talking about wide receivers is one of my favorite things to do. I'm a wide receiver coach in real life, so that's exciting for me. So we'll get into the details a little bit more today. I hope you're ready for that, but let's get into it and look at a detail against the Arizona Cardinals. We had a great 7-step curl rep against a bailing cover 3 corner with a bust coverage here to the weak side, which means the linebacker gets out and the strong safety drops into the hook coverage. And the important thing here is for Rome Odunze as a player, he needs to close that distance to that DB and getting him to back up a little bit more by threatening him vertically in order to just sit there and get the ball after he ran the route, right? So you need to threaten the DB vertically, get him to back off a little bit, and then he can run that route properly. And Rome Odunze does so in this rep, does a great job of exploding out of the stance and then threatening the DB vertically. And then to stop, he needs to transfer his weight forward with a good trigger step, and he does so here, has a good trigger step on the 7th step, and then follows through with his hips and then stopped on a dime on this rep. So that really represented his ability to gain ground quickly, threaten the DB vertically, and then stop on a dime in between the zone coverage or in front of the zone coverage and get a great catch here against the Arizona Cardinals. That was a great example. Another example we want to look at against the Washington Commanders with a whip route against off coverage cover 1 man. The corner playing inside shade here, trying to prevent him from gaining ground inside. So he wants to just keep him outside of him to the sideline because he thinks he can keep up with the speed, which is also very questionable, but he is in off coverage, so it's a great option here for Rome Odunze to run a whip route. And Rome does a great job here of, first of all, running a true 3-step slant, because that's what we want to sell on a whip route, right? We want to sell the 3-step slant. Does a great job here running it, true 3 steps, breaks in with a good jab, and then he gets the eyes to the quarterback as candy for the DB to just trigger on the ball downfield, right? And as he does so, he sells the slant for a couple of more steps to truly sell it, and has a sudden hip drop, is very quick at the break point, and gets wide open against the DB. So that was another great example of setting up one thing and then running another thing. So really great job here by Rome Odunze overall on this rep against the Washington Commanders. Then another thing that we need to talk about with Rome Odunze and his route running is his speed through the break point, which just means he maintains his speed consistently through the route and not letting the DB a chance to get back into the play, especially on 90-degree speed cuts after the jab step. That's very important, and he has one great example here against the Detroit Lions, where they again are in a cover 1 look, and he's playing against Brian Branch, who's a very solid safety that can cover you one-on-one, so he's not an easy player to play against in the slot. And what he does here is running a inside stem dig route, and he starts off this route with a split release on the line of scrimmage, which should hold the DB for a second, because a split release gives the wide receiver the option to go either in or out. So it should freeze the DB for a second. And by the way, that's Rome Odunze's almost only but most effective release off the line. We'll talk about that later as well as a factor. But great split release off the line, which holds the DB here for a millisecond and then explodes off the ball with burst, gets the inside stem, and then pushes it vertically still, which is great because it forces the DB to travel a little bit vertically, and has a great push stop at the break point on his dig route, and then bends it and keeps it flat for a great gain here without losing any speed. So that's what I'm talking about with speed through the break point, being explosive off the line, but then after cutting, not losing that speed and just being quick to the point. Great rep 101. So overall, as a route runner, I think he's a very good and underrated route runner, explosive off the ball, precise with his feet, and he can stop on a dime, has good hands to work at the release point, and is a very physical receiver overall, obviously with his God-given abilities, being tall and just a heavy guy that can work his hands and be strong at the point of attack, and he does understand leverage really well of a DB already, so that was great to see. Now, another point to make with Rome Odunze is definitely also his hands. Rome is an elite jump ball guy if he gets a chance actually to catch the football. Obviously, that was a big problem in 2024. And with him, it doesn't really matter if it's a catch in traffic, a jump ball, a over-the-shoulder catch, or a back shoulder throw. Rome can make every catch in the book. I think he also does a great job of keeping the sideline to himself, stacking the DB with speed, being physical, keeping his line down the stretch, and does a great job of just, like I said, keeping the sideline to him to make adjustments and give the quarterback a great window to throw to, which is obviously very important too. And I additionally think he has great body control. He can turn his body to any football and make an adjustment in the air, which is very impressive. And his ball tracking skills are still elite as well. So he should be a big-time comfort target in 2025 for Caleb Williams. He just needs more chances, and they kind of need to fix that connection that they had in 2024. But that's why they got Ben Johnson and Antoine Randall to work on these things. Now, moving on with him as a receiver, I think against zone coverage, he's also a very smart player that can read and react to coverages and consistently find soft spots in between the zone coverage. I think there's a good example against the Minnesota Vikings where he is playing against a cover 3 buzz strong coverage by the Vikings and runs a curl route again against an off corner back here that's going to bail, and he recognizes the immediate drop from the cornerback and settles down perfectly between the strong side flat and hook defender. And I think that's just phenomenal to see as a young player recognizing the zone coverage, finding the soft spot over and over again. He did a really good job watching the 2024 tape here already. And then also with zone coverage, I think on crossing routes, he does a good job of getting behind the linebackers with his speed, knowing that he needs to gain some ground and some depth behind him for a quarterback to make a throw happen. And he's always in the good windows where Caleb can make a throw, or mostly is in the good windows where Caleb can make a good throw. So that was nice to see as well. Now let's actually move on to the Yak Ability, yards after the catch. I think even though he stands at 6'3", 215 pounds, being a bigger wide receiver, he's still a very shifty threat that cannot be underestimated as a Yak threat overall. I think he's a very strong runner that can break some tackles, so using his physicality, but I think he's also a very shifty guy that runs north-south. So as soon as he catches the football, I love that he just gets down the field. He doesn't want to get too fancy. He wants to gain yards. But if he is in the open field, he can make guys miss. He's a very fast player, in my opinion, and he shows some burst after catching the football and just going, like I said, north-south, which I absolutely love to see. And now we want to finish off the last two categories as a wide receiver that we want to look at that I really thought was impressive with him. First of all, the scramble drill. I think whenever play breaks down, his route is being ran and Caleb needs to scramble, he did a great job of never quitting on a play, always working to the quarterback's eyesight, being a quarterback-friendly target, showing his numbers. And I think that pairing with Caleb Williams as a player that can extend plays, create on the field, fits very well with a wide receiver that never quits on the play and always will be in his eyesight. So that was one big plus too. And then one last plus that we want to talk about is his blocking ability. I think Rome Odunze is a great blocker overall, shows some effort, is a finisher. You see him finish some blocks, putting players on the ground, which was amazing to see. He understands angles really well in the run game. He knows where the run is going, which is obviously very important. There is some lazy wide receivers that don't. He definitely does, and has some great angles in the second level. He uses his power and strength and big frame to block and is not lazy at all. So overall, I think Rome Odunze is also an exceptional blocker moving forward for the Bears. And with that being said, we want to move on to the actual bad, or let's more call it the room for improvement for Rome Odunze in 2025. Moving forward, I think the miscommunications with Caleb Williams was one big aspect that was evident on tape, and by far the most evident thing on tape. If we're talking about room for improvement, they need to get it fixed somehow this offseason. Too many miscommunications, too many overthrows, underthrows. Rome Odunze also not sitting in the zone where Caleb Williams wants him to be. So those are things they need to work on this offseason, but I think they have a much better coaching staff that can get that actually fixed. I think also the drops were a little bit of an issue. He had 5 drops in 2024. Some very lazy drops, in my opinion. He is much better than that. I'm not worried about it at all, honestly, because I know he has great hands. It's just a couple of lazy drops that shouldn't actually happen with Rome Odunze, but it's his rookie year. He can get away with it right now, and I think he'll do a lot better, but I still have to mention it. He needs to improve, in my opinion, in that area too. And then stopping in the zone, like I already said, with the miscommunication. I think there's a couple of times where he ran a dig route, for example. I think it was, I don't remember against who it was, but he ran a dig route and actually stopped instead of keep moving into the zone coverage. So I do think he's pretty good in zone coverage, but a couple of times he stopped or he was just not on the same page as Caleb Williams in these situations. So overall, for the conclusion of Rome Odunze's rookie season in 2024, how did he do in that year? We're talking about over 700 yards as a rookie at wide receiver 3 with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen on the roster or in the wide receiver room. I think that is very impressive, and the tape backed it up for sure. I believe Rome Odunze is a very sudden route runner that has a lot of room for improvement still, which is a good thing, talking about release packages or things that he can do at the top of the route, or also the route tree that he had in 2024 was pretty much, in my opinion, not necessarily limited for the Chicago Bears and Rome Odunze, which I think didn't make a lot of sense because I think he can run every route in the book. I think he has great hands, effort, and understanding for the game, and is a really solid rookie with rookie mistakes, which obviously happened. Now for 2025, what can we expect? First of all, Ben Johnson, Antoine Randall-El. A great wide receiver coach, a great head coach that's offensive-minded. He wants to fix all the issues that he had in 2024. I guarantee you that. And those guys are going to make him a better player moving forward. And with those guys, he has the chance to be an elite wide receiver. No kidding, an elite wide receiver in the NFL. Also, there's no more Keenan Allen. He's now automatically wide receiver 1/2 for the Chicago Bears. I still do believe DJ Moore is wide receiver 1, but Rome Odunze has the talent to be a second wide receiver 1 or overtake that role in the near future. I really do believe so. And overall, Rome Odunze, one of the most talented wide receivers in the game right now, and a big-time weapon to develop for head coach Ben Johnson. And with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of Rome Odunze's rookie season and what do you expect him to do in 2025. Like I said, let me know in the comments down below. Also, make sure to check out all the other new film analysis videos that I dropped on Grady Jarrett, Drew Dahlman, Joe Tooney, and Jonah Jackson. And with that being said, like and subscribe if you liked the video. And as always, guys, bear down.